Hi, everyone. It's day 5, and today's mantra is faith. Now, it's kind of interesting because I'm not a big fan of words, I think, that place the power outside of us, because not because I don't think that we live in a magical world. I definitely do. I mean, look around and get out into nature and look around, and you can see that Mother Nature is pretty magical and pretty has a lot of intelligence that hard for us to comprehend. We do our, we're able to build skyscrapers, and we can even go to the moon, we're going to Mars, but the beauty of nature and the animals and the magnificent mountains and snow and oceans and surfing, all the things that we're able to do because Mother Nature is so spectacular. Absolutely, I bow down to this wisdom, this divine wisdom. But in our earthly and mortal existence, I think that a lot of what we should be doing is fixing things so that we can have the faith that it's going to work out great. So, for instance, your electric bill is $300. If you have faith that it's just going to magically get lower, then, I think that's on you because it's not likely to happen. If you installed solar and you live in a sunny state and you paid it off in 3 or 4 years, and your $35 electric bill is down from 350, and you have $3,000 plus in savings annually, then you can have faith around that because you had this beautiful plan that supported the transition. You can have faith that a good plan that's executed is going to work. um, and it's on you then to take the actions to make it and put it into work. So I think that faith has a lot to do with accountability and good systems and, perseverance and determination and all of that too. So I like the word and the idea of faith when it's coupled with accountability and when it's coupled with all of the things we just talked about. So I'm going to show you a few hopefully inspiring examples of people who've done this. And as we were talking about, the various different parts that of CO2 emissions, we talked about transportation, electricity, industry, and those make up about 3/4 of the problem. And then we come down to commercial and residential, and then also agriculture. And those two together are the remaining last quarter. So let's think about it in terms of commercial and residential. Let's have faith that we can reduce our commercial and residential CO2 footprint by smarter choices. And again, it doesn't have to mean that it can't be beautiful or that we aren't comfortable. A lot of times it's fixing leaks, right? We're turning off lights, installing LED lighting. It's knowing our energy hogs and limiting that amount of time. It's knowing our energy vampires and not have them sucking the electricity all the time. So getting smart once, making the adjustments once that are bold changes can result in massive, massive savings. And that's where I'm going to show you some inspiring stories now. So the first inspiring story is going to be the Matrix Energy House that I toured back in, I think it was probably 2017, I'm guessing. And let's see, look at that, 2017. So this is the woman. And what's interesting about her is that in her house, which is that she was building in upstate New York, had been in the family for generations, many generations, right? Might even be longer, like 7 generations. And it had come up for eminent domain because one of the utilities wanted to build a nuclear power plant. And so the family was fighting it and lawsuits and all this sort of stuff. One of the things that struck me when she was telling me the story is the judge kept saying, do we really need that much power? And then it was 3 Mile Island, and then the utility was canceled and they were able to keep their property. Now, fast forward into 2017, and she's building a house there, and she's asking that same question, is that much power really needed? So they consulted an architect that knew about passive house standards, and they built a house that requires like a rounding error of the amount of heating that a normal house in that region would. And again, I do tell the story in this the commercial and real estate section or residential section of my book, The Power of 8 Billion. So you'll definitely want to read more about that. But, a lot of us, she had, what, 3 decades or longer, her whole life history wrapped up in this house that had been or the land that had been in the family for generations and generations. So she had and she, fought the utility company and won. She had a very powerful drive to want to build the right thing for the area and for herself and for her family and for future generations, but that would also honor past generations and the struggle they went through. And she had a real reason not to want to have an energy hog house, because it could have been an energy plant, a nuclear power plant, trying to power all the energy hogs in the world or in that region. So we may not have that powerful of a story behind us, but what can we do? Again, I never lived in Louisiana or Mississippi. I never lived in Cancer Alley. I never had known about, this is the first year I learned about the dead zone. I didn't know about all of these things. And it took me far too long, in my view, to be able to make the connection that when I put gasoline in my car, that was what was responsible for the oil spills, not the oil companies, my demand, my consumer demand. So I got to have faith that the oil companies are going to change. Nope. I'm going to have faith that the consumers are going to change, and that the oil companies, as any industry will change as a result of that. With regard to, Susan Guthrie in her area, she didn't have faith that she could just build this magic house that was going to use less energy. She found the architect that was rich in wisdom about passive house standards. So there are lots of great organizations with a massive amount of know-how. One of them is OBG Real Estate. So I toured their first LEED rated building in Europe. It's located in the Netherlands. Stairs are the star. Yes, they have elevators, so if anybody needs it, but they're hidden. And everything in there, as you can see, is designed to be, the lighting from the sun. It is powered. This is another anaerobic digestion power plant. OBG Real Estate has expanded since then. They have edge technologies. They're really leading the world in what they're doing for buildings. And then we also have, other areas like Plant Prefab that does that for residential as well. So they'll assemble your house in a factory, and they'll use, cradle to cradle materials, best practices, a lot of passive house and passive solar will be installed in it. And there are some words of warning in my commercial and residential section. I have definitely toured earth houses in New Mexico. I have toured the communities that they create out of Weebies and Airstream trailers. And so there's a lot of wisdom in there. One last thing I want to leave you with is that intergenerational housing is on the rise. And that is something that's helping to solve unaffordability issues, but it is also helping to keep the money in the family. And it is a lot more energy efficient than having everybody in their small little cubicle and, you know, everybody cooking their own little meal. So again, I encourage you to drop down the rabbit hole a little bit more on this, but it is something that I care a lot about, both in terms of financial literacy, financial empowerment, keeping the money in the family, but also energy efficiency. And you know, if you don't have all the land dotted with everybody in their own little tiny house, and then the community center, and then there's no room for greenery, you know, if you instead do the intergenerational house or the manor house approach, then you have all of that area for carbon sequestration, for verdure, for, you know, vistas, all the things that make life beautiful, for great walking and that sort of thing. So when we come back to faith, let's have faith that a good plan, right? Let's have faith that we can make a good plan. And that's the action I want you to do here, is to look at the commercial and look at the residential, and don't stop. If you've already looked at your own residence and you figured out how you're going to cut your CO2 emissions by a third this year, whether it's by powering by solar or by looking at passive house standards, by insulating better, LED lighting, all of these sort of things. LED lighting is powerful. I mean, I toured the Ritz in Denver, and they had installed LED lighting, and they were saving multi-millions every year in lighting, because an LED light bulb can have 100 watts worth of lighting for 15 watts. That's 85% savings on your amount of electricity used, right? So you want to be cognizant of all these things. Again, it may sound like, wow, my Lord, I have so much to learn, but you can learn a lot of it over the course of 21 days. Then the challenge is, can you implement it? And I know you can, and I have faith that you can, because I think that the truth sets us free, right? So thank you for being a huge part. Thank you for making it to day 5. Please make it to day 21, and let's get this job done. The power of 8 billion. Thank you for being part of it.